If you leave the top showing, blackbirds come and pull them out, and it's very irritating. As summer turns to autumn, it's a great time to plant veg, which will mature next spring. I'm going to show you what to plant and how to plant it. My kitchen garden at this time of year isn't much to look at, I admit, because most things have been harvested. But there's all this bare soil which it would be a shame not to use. The problem with beds outside, planting stuff in autumn to get it through the winter, is even when they're raised up like this, if it's rainy and horrible, stuff doesn't grow terribly well. But I think I've got a solution. I should get you to admire the crops I did grow this summer though, really. These onions, grown from sets, planted in April and harvested end of August, beginning of September, when the tops had fallen over and they'd begun to dry out. Then I dried them out even more in the potting shed, and then they were strung up into these plats. This is the traditional way of storing your onions during the winter. I grew 50 last year for Mrs. T, and she said, that's far too many, so she's only got 30 this year. But then, you know, one a fortnight, that'll do, won't it, really? You can grow onions from seed. I never do. I always grow them from sets. Tiny little bulbs that are planted out in March, April, that fatten up right the way through the summer. Then you harvest them and dry them and store them. But you can get onion sets that you plant now in autumn. They don't grow much during the winter, but they romp away come spring, and they will ripen much earlier. These I was harvesting in August, September. These will be harvested in June. That's pretty good. You're stealing a couple of months. However, planted in an outdoor bed, they'll rot away. So my quick tip to grow overwintering onion sets is like this. You may remember this raised bed. It's become a great friend because I've been successionally sowing salad crops in here right the way through the summer. But this is the perfect place to grow your overwintering onions. I've got the red ones, red winter, the yellow ones, sensu yellow, and I'm just going to do a few rows of each in here because the fact that it's raised up means it drains rapidly and give them that much more chance of getting through the winter. So break the pack open. It says in this here 50 sets. I shall not be getting 50 sets in here. However, I'll get enough to see us through that early part of summer. I'll just space them out to show you roughly how much room they're going to need. Remember, these onions are not going to go quite as big as the ones that I grew during the summer. Probably sneak another 2 in there, just budge them up a bit, Alan. They're not going to grow that fat. So I've got 18 onions in there. In the old days, they used to just leave the tops showing. If you leave the top showing, blackbirds come and pull them out, and it's very irritating. So I like to get them in so they just disappear, only just, mind you. Don't bury them too deeply, but it just keeps the tops out of the way of the blackbirds. In they go. I left in the compost that the salads have been growing in, but then added some more. Just ordinary good, honest to goodness, peat-free, multi-purpose compost. And that will do them nicely. And I'll now get the red ones in alongside. Always chuck the soft ones away, it's going to rot. These are going to give you that earlier crop. And it's fun to be growing them. There'll be people at home saying, he's planting them far too close together. No, I'm not. Not this time of year. Somebody said to me, how many onions do you get out of one of these? Well, 1. Now, if the winter is really cold and really wet, even this raised bed will struggle to nurture these onions up. So there is a little insurance policy you can take. Get a seed tray and put a few in here. And you can leave these outside in a sheltered spot, but when it gets really rough, really cold, really wet, you can just bring them into a shed or garage, and that'll give them that little bit of protection. But now at the end here, where I left a bit of room, I've got space to grow some garlic. The thing they always tell you about garlic is you plant it on the shortest day and you harvest it on the longest day. Well, I'm never around doing things like this on the 21st of December because it'd be the end of a marriage, wouldn't it really, you know? So sometime during the autumn and early winter, you can plant garlic. Not like that, but broken up into individual cloves. Just as you use a clove for cooking garlic, you use a clove for planting. Plant them in the same way as the onions, just tucking them in. And each of those cloves is going to grow into a garlic bulb. So you don't need many unless you use a garlic bulb for every single meal in your household. There we are. This is a variety called Germidor. I always like to water things in, just to settle them really, but I doubt I shall have to water them much from now on, in that the autumn rains are going to keep them nice and damp, but that's just a good soaking to start them off. Once they start to grow in spring, if you do get cold snaps, it's a good idea just to have handy some fleece, just on those nights where you think, oh, they could do with a little bit of protection. You need to weight it down just to stop it from blowing off, and I found these little flower pots, bit of weight, that sorts it out. When the weather turns milder again, you can whip it off and let the rain get in more, and then have a really good circulation of air. I have high hopes now of my little raised bed producing some onions come next June, red and yellow. Bit of garlic too for midsummer. Worth a gamble, I'd have thought, wouldn't you? If you want more gardening advice and inspiration like this, then why not subscribe to my channel? I'm posting new videos every week.